Hey, I'm here with you today with John Collins. My name is Ryan O'Mara, and this is the first in a series of Zoom recordings that we wanted to do. And it's expressly related, or at least from my perspective, with my clientele, with therapy. I'm a hypnotherapist. I have a practice in the greater area of Los Angeles, and I also work remotely. And so a lot of what the impetus behind this is what I've seen with my clients and how I think that we could do kind of an information session with John Collins, whom I'll introduce to you in a second. Just kind of a back and forth forum where we can touch upon a lot of the subjects that I see in the therapeutic setting. So with that, today we're going to do authenticity, and before we get into that, I want to introduce my good friend and fellow therapist. He has a marriage and family therapy counseling certificate or degree, excuse me, and he works with awareness groups with men in particular, and he's a very grounded individual. And with that, I'll introduce you to John. Hi, John.
How's it going, buddy? Good to be here. um, yeah, I love that we're going to jump into authenticity. As you know, I've been a seeker for most of my life. And, I think we talked about identity a lot and finding your purpose and your meaning. And we can get into that. But definitely for me, a little introduction to myself was when I lost my identity as an athlete, when I was younger. And that was really difficult, and spent the next few years developing an identity. And so developing an identity, figuring out who you are, what you believe in, what your values are, and then hopefully aligning your actions with that. It's kind of where authenticity starts. So I'm excited to plunge into that.
Well, great. Yeah, thank you. And so let's start with that. And I think we both have definitions of authenticity. And I looked it up in the Webster's dictionary, and it just said made and done in a way that faithfully resembles the original. And so I thought that was unique, and two words popped out to me, faithfully and original. So original to me is perhaps our ideal self if you're looking at it in a therapeutic setting. And so faithfully pursuing the original, it's almost like you can see it in a third person perspective, like this is our ideal, and how do we align ourselves with that on a daily basis, really, because it is a challenge, it's a process. And there's no written script in that faithful pursuing of that ideal, or alignment with that ideal would be intuition, I think, and just kind of trusting self. And I think that is something where, gosh, everyone needs it. Certainly, I'm no different, and I know that that's a big struggle. It's a challenge that I see a lot of my clients have, and so to me, that's kind of where I begin and end my therapeutic sessions, is to kind of get the client in alignment with how they faithfully see themselves and their highest self. So how about yourself?
Yeah, so a lot of good stuff there. For me, authenticity, I just think back to my journey and going to therapy for the first time. It started with self-examination, awareness. Like I didn't know who I was. I was out of a relationship. I was kind of meandering through life. And I remember my first therapist, who was an English guy, he was very in my face. And once I got his trust, he'd be like, "Hey, mate, next week bring your boxing gloves, all right? Take care." And I was ready to hear the truth from him. And that was, you're irresponsible, you're unreliable, you're full of it, right?
Yeah.
So that was the beginning of this, what I call the self-exploration, self-examination, taking inventory. And that's where authenticity starts. Like, what am I really doing? What do people think? How am I viewed at that early stage? And once you're doing that, there has to be a level of vulnerability, right? Like this,
Yeah.
and humility to be able to say, this is my areas of weakness. This is where I'm struggling. This is where I want to improve. Being able to say I'm okay with that. Let's get better rather than covering up. And then again, I touched on it earlier. It's who am I? What do I really believe in? Why do I believe in those things? What are those values that are at my core? And do my actions align with that? To that level, is where I am authentic and genuine. So
Yeah, the vulnerability aspect of it is key. And to me, it's hard for anybody to be vulnerable, and especially in the company of others, whether it be family, romantic partnerships, friendships, even just an acquaintance, right? Like, what type of affront do we put up? What pretense do we put up when we meet somebody? And I guess it just depends on the setting, right? But that masking definitely detracts from our authenticity, and finding out who you are. I mean, I think this title, this subject really hit home with me because as I was maturing in my early adult life, it was like, okay, matriculation from high school to college, then perhaps postgraduate school, and okay, and you got to find a good job and a good relation, all these things. And it's like, okay, well, is this pattern for me? Maybe my pattern's a little one off. I don't know, but it's not necessarily doing things as how people see you or where you should be and how you should be doing, but more so, okay, what speaks to you, and what are you in alignment with? That could be completely different than what the social norms are, and I think if you connect with that, then you can really be a strong contributor to the greater society in whatever way you see fit. If, as long as it brings you joy, you don't hurt yourself or anybody else. I think that's really the goal. So that's what I've seen, and I think when I am with a client in therapy, that's what I attempt for them to do. It's like it doesn't really matter. Of course, we love our family and our close friends, yet kind of what speaks to you, and don't make those comparisons, especially now with social media. It just seems like we're always connected and we're looking and seeing what others do, and that affects our behavior, I think, in a big way, especially when we're tied in 6 7 8 hours a day. And so, but that's not necessarily, it could be, the the thing of the moment, but it's not necessarily what is the inner drive of who we are and where we need to be, and being in that moment. So that's a big challenge, I think, for my clients as well. And perhaps you've seen it with your groups or certain awareness sessions that you've had. Please do elaborate.
yeah, I I think you said it earlier, when you're on your path, only you know, and you kind of follow your gut, your intuition. You know when you're settling, you know when you're not doing what you need to be doing, right? And I think the irony is, um, you want to fit in, and that's sociably acceptable, but that's where the challenge is when you are trying to fit in all the time.
Yeah.
You're sacrificing who you are at times. But that's all right. It might be a job, it might be a circle of friends, and it's okay to, like, okay, how do I navigate my way? But ultimately, it's that fitting in too much, you know, responding to other people's opinions and expectations is
Mhm.
where authenticity gets challenged. And ultimately you want those friends, right? Those two, three, four, five people that can keep you online to what you say and do, keep you accountable to your word, and will give you a hard word, that you need to hear. But yeah, we can talk about some obstacles too, because there's a lot out there in terms of how, God, how do I overcome these obstacles and be authentic?
Yeah, and that really leads to that, back to that masking behavior. I mean, I see when it's so difficult to be authentic or to connect with self, that we do things that are distractions. And partly what I see are addictions, right? I mean, we get into alcohol to mask the responsibility of who we are or our decision making. It could be, uh, drugs for that matter. It could be going online and gaming all the time because you built this alternative universe that you can freely choose who you are and what you want to be. And then your real life then is the distraction, right? It's like, oh, I don't want to feed that too much energy because I'm this like big superstar in my alternative universe. I see that with a lot of the Gen Zers and younger generations. So that's kind of, and we know, as you said, when you're your authentic self, when you're in touch with that. And if you've just done, you know, an about face or taken a big detour from that authenticity, how to get that back in alignment. And a lot of that does come back to humility, being humble and understanding that it's okay to start back on, ground zero, or get back there and not feel like, oh my gosh, everyone's zooming ahead on the fast lane of the freeway and getting everything they want, and they're earning all this money, and there seems like they're on their regattas and sailing with their soulmates. It's like, well, come on, just let's get back to the basics. I think when we do that, then we speak from the heart. We find out what's important to us, and that's really important, and it differs for everybody. So the comparisons are a big issue. After you.
Right. We talked about it before, the people pleasing, kind of, we have to be careful of being the yes people. Being able to say no is so important. And there's a lot to this, but generally is when we keep saying yes to others with our time, with our agreements, with our listening, it can be a good gesture. But if we keep saying yes to others, we're saying no to ourselves.
Yeah.
And authenticity ultimately can say, you know what, tonight I can't do it tonight. Or no, we need to stop right now. Or whatever it is that you could easily just please that person, make it agreeable, not stir up anything. There's the challenge to say, you know what, I get for myself, I'm getting tired. I need to go another way, do it respectfully. And so I think that's important. And humility, I want to say one last thing. Humility is so important because humility recognizes others. At the end of the day, all the work we do is about connections and people. And it has to start with humility. It has to start that my value is no better than anyone else's, and that I'm interested in other people. And I'm going to take some risks to try to develop my authenticity with certain people. Certain people can hurt you, but ultimately, as I start to take some risk and share and be more vulnerable in who I am, and get that validation and that feedback from those close, I can start to do that in the real world a little bit better.
Yeah. I mean, so your value is no greater than anybody else. It's no less than anybody else either.
Yep.
And I think that compromising behavior of, oh, well, I'll do it for the greater good of the family or my friends, or I'll give myself up, or the work group, or whatever it may be. And you end up having zero energy for yourself. And it's like you always put yourself last on that pedestal.
And you become bitter and you act out passive aggressively. Over time.
Sure. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
like, why am I not standing up for myself?
And you're denying a real core value of who you are. And that's
Right.
the ability to develop and be your authentic self and see where that goes organically. I mean, it's such an important aspect. And I was that type for a while. It's like, well, the greater good's better than me. And I thought that was selfless, but it was selfish.
Right.
Because if you give yourself that energy first, then you can pick and choose how you want to give to others and still have a lot left in the tank thereafter.
Sure.
So, well, with that, what type of, go ahead, I'm sorry.
I was gonna say, let's talk about some suggestions, maybe how we can improve authenticity. What were you gonna say?
Exactly. If you had some solutions, perhaps, please touch
Yeah.
on that.
Right.
Go ahead.
I think there's a few. I think to start that examination process, meditation, as I've said, and going out into nature, right? Being alone. There's no one, there's no feedback, there's no comparisons. You would get a really quick snapshot of where you're at. Let's just say meditating in nature, you're on a long walk. It's just you and Mother Nature. Nature's powerful and it's still and it's quiet. So it's that chance to say, what am I thinking? That's a great place to start. Just go for a walk.
Yeah.
You don't have to meditate. Maybe just go for a walk and clear your mind. The point is, how can we get more present, right? Let's get out of our head. Our head, we can start thinking so much and getting ahead of ourselves, and our brain won't shut off. So my first thing towards authenticity is like being able to be in this moment and getting out of my mind and present is one of the things. How about you?
Yeah, it's a fantastic one. Certainly when you come in touch with nature, you feel grounded, and you don't tend to kind of lose your thoughts. That thinker, talker doesn't distract you from your core beliefs and who you are. Certainly for me, and this probably encompasses a lot of meditation or being out in nature, but it's get into a place where you don't feel judged.
Right.
I think that's really important, because if you feel judged, then you're going to have defenses up, and it's like you're going to block here, wherever it may be. And so you're preoccupied with that, and you're distancing yourself from your heart energy. Well, I mean, the longest distance to cover is from your mind to your heart. So that is to me a real important thing. So you can do that anywhere. Finding a sit spot in your home, as you said, going for a walk, nature would be great. But perhaps it's, being with your pet, things where you can perhaps get pensive and really give some hard thought as to, okay, what am I doing for myself today in a good way? How am I challenging myself? How am I growing? How am I gaining a greater perspective on my life and who I am as a person and how I want to contribute? It's not to say you're going to come up with a solution all in one day, but I think that practice is a daily practice, right? It's a daily challenge. You don't sit on top of the mountain in an ashram and floating up in the air saying, "Oh, I got it. I'm the most authentic person ever." And then that's it, on to the next assignment. No, it's something that we carry it with us, and that helps our growth. So.
Right. I would say, as my last thing in terms of what I would suggest to people is again, that practice vulnerability, lean into your weaknesses, and find those friends where you can do that, right? Just being able to share, things aren't going too well. I don't have the answer.
Yeah.
You know what? I really messed this situation up. There's this part of myself that I'm just struggling with.
Yes.
That's okay. But some people have this thing that if I express my weakness, then I'm weak. That, it's like, what's your problem? Get it together. I think we know that that's not the case, but people don't know how to do it. The point is just do it, right? Like if you can put yourself out there over the fear of what other people might think, and oh no, if I say this, then that person will see that I'm exposed and they'll have this on me. No, it's not. That weakness, those actions of vulnerability, of self-expression, that I don't have it all figured out, are actually a strength. That's the irony. It's actually an amazing quality that you can develop as you express your weakness.
Boy, that's fantastic. I love how you touched on the aspect of speaking to a friend and being honest and connecting, because I think, to me, when I see that in my clientele, that's really half the battle, is finding a sacred, trusted source for you to be heard. So often we don't have that. And so at that point, you can clear your mind a little bit. You can get some impartial wisdom as to, oh, maybe this would be a better direction, or over here, but this is your life. You need to uncover that on your own and discover who you are and what works for you. Well, that's fantastic. Well, thank you very much, John, for your input on this. It's really invaluable. I love getting different perspectives on this. And if you choose to do so, perhaps we continue this with another topic in a not so distant future. So with that, signing off. Great to be with you today, and I look forward to our next session.
Sounds good, brother. Take care, everybody.